Heavenly Father, we thank you for loving us. We thank you for your message. We thank you for who you are. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So tonight is about heal your gut and balance your sugar. So when we're looking at this, we're seeing, like what we said last night, that the gut has a lot to do with a lot of different organs. The gut is corresponding, it's communicating, it's interacting, and it's trying to help you to figure out. Because if you don't feel good, the gut is trying to let you know there's something going on somewhere inside your system, and it's linked to these other things. So we're going to be looking at your sugar levels, and we're going to be looking at how diabetes is the connection with the gut. And so the surprising gut diabetes connection that could change your life. So did you know 90% of type 2 diabetics have a gut diabosis? I probably say that word wrong all the time, but you see it there. And so we're seeing that through science and through health, we're seeing that that percentage is very high. So your gut bacteria may be controlling your blood sugar more than you actually realize. And so we don't really take much consideration when it comes to our gut, but if we understand how important what the gut does, it makes us understand, wow, I gotta take a check on that. So the hidden cause is that your gut microbiome produces compounds that either improve or worsen insulin resistance. Most doctors are not testing for this. When you go into the doctor, they just test whatever it is that they're focused on. But what we need to do is we need to take a whole person perspective. We need to see where they are mentally. We need to see what's happening, what they're eating. We need to see all of these things because that's who we are. That's how God made us. We are more than just one dimension. We are in different things in our life, right? What is our stressors? Is that our job? Is that our family? What kind of things are actually going on? So we have to look at that hidden cause. It's all about getting to the root cause so we can actually live the solution, right? If we're getting to the actual root cause, then we're going to be able to live in a way that we know what it is, so we take care of that. If we're not looking at the root cause, then we're missing the whole thing. And so once we understand exactly what's going on, then we can change those things. So there's great news, though. Healing your gut can drastically lower your blood sugar and your A1C as little as 60 to 90 days. Well, I can tell you can probably do it less than that, probably within 10 days, 1 month, and you're seeing all of this start changing to the point where you don't need any more medication. Now you might think, well, how can that be? Well, it is true. Because I have this saying that says, if you always think the way you always thought, then you'll always feel the way you've always felt. So if you always feel the way you've always felt, then you'll always do what you've always done. So if you're always doing what you've always done, then you're going to always get the same result that you have always gotten. So if you get that same result all the time, that means that you're thinking what you've always thought. Because we put ourselves in these cycles and we keep doing these same things over and over, so we never get out of that. And so we need to tweak things here to say, okay, let me try that. Let me see that. Or once we get some results in from reports, we can say, okay, this is what's causing this. Let's clear this up the proper way, and then we can see how that can run and change things. Whoops. So today, these are the things that we're going to discover. Number one, we're going to discover how your gut bacteria can control blood sugar regulation. Number two, we're going to see the gut, pancreas, liver axis and the insulin resistance. Number three, why inflammation sabotages your glucose metabolism. The next one is real transformation from people who reversed their diabetes. And the last one is practical protocols that you can implement immediately. So we're looking at these main things because I believe that these are very important things that we need to take a look at. We got to know what this is all about. And so to me, one of the most important things that we need to look at is our liver and how that's working and what it's actually doing inside the body and how that plays a role. So we're going to be looking at the pancreas and the liver because the pancreas is what's involved when it comes to diabetics, right? And so we want to see what it's doing, how it's working, as well as the liver. So our first thing that we want to look at is the gut microbiome diabetes connection and how the bacteria controls your blood sugar. Your gut is your second pancreas. You know, we got that saying that your gut is the second brain. And we know that the gut is like undercover for the brain to let the brain know, hey, there's something going on here. Hey, there's something here. There's something there. And it's going in and it's finding out different things that's going on. So then that way the brain can do its part, or it gets fogged up, or it has some issue going on. We know that there's 100 trillion bacteria producing metabolites, and 3 pounds of total weight in your microbiome. So we're seeing, what's actually in there. These bacteria produce hormones, neurotransmitters, and compounds that directly affect insulin sensitivity. We hear a lot about that. Insulin sensitivity, insulin, we'll talk about it in a bit. So what happens in diabetic gut diabosis? Well, first we see that we have bacteria that's harmful. And the reason why it's harmful is because it has an overgrowth. We don't have that balance like it should be. And so we have the harmful and we have the one that's beneficial or protective. And when one outgrows, like the harmful one outgrows the other, that's when we have a problem. And so that beneficial species now are declined because the other one is taking over more of that area. The second thing we see here is that the gut barrier becomes permeable, meaning that it's not tight junctions, that it spreads and stuff can come out. And so when these things get out, like protein and some of these other things, food particles and all this other stuff's coming out, it's getting into other areas where it should not be. And so it's causing problems. So that barrier is very important, that we keep that barrier tight, those junctions tight. And then our third thing here, what happens is that the endotoxins enter the bloodstream. And when that enters into that bloodstream, what's happening is it's triggering information, because what's taking place when those things aren't supposed to be where they are. The immune system kicks in and it says, we got to go there and take care of business. So that's why we have this inflammation that takes place. And then we see that the insulin receptors for become now, they have to restart, or they become resistant, and blood sugar rises. So when we're looking at all of this inside the system, we see that the key to get the insulin into the cell is kind of like having a house, and you can't get in because they changed the locks. The key gets in there, but you can't turn it to open it up because it's like it can't hear. You ring the doorbell, you're trying to get in, that insulin can't get into the cell, and it's like, I don't hear you. It's not hearing because it's maybe inflamed. It's the endotoxins are filling up, and it's not able to get inside. The receptors are not connecting properly. So we have a system that is faulty, that's not working. So we have to look at the good versus the bad, right? When it comes to the bacteria, because we learned last night that we have more bacteria cells than we do human cells. So when we look at the good versus the bad, we don't want too much of an overload of either one. So when we look at those good bacteria or the beneficial bacteria, we see that we have a number of different ones. And when we test, we look to see if we have enough of those inside of our system to make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to do. And then when we look at the harmful ones, and if there's too many of them, that can cause sickness, that can cause health issues. And so a lot of these things that we are looking at, I can't pronounce half of these names, but we know the Bifidobacterium species, the Lactobacillus species, the Phascalobarinum, the bitrate producers. Those are the ones that improve the insulin sensitivity, whereas the harmful bacteria are the ones that worsen the insulin resistance, like E. coli, certain strands of that, Clostridium, the Rundinoculus. So we have these certain type of species of bacteria that play a huge role. And then how does this actually affect our blood sugar? When we look at all of these, what does it do inside the system? So the short chain fatty acids, that's good bacteria from fermenting fiber that will improve insulin sensitivity. So the effective blood sugar, it would help it go down. Whereas the butyrate, the fiber fermentation, it decreases and it reduces the inflammation and heals the gut. The LPS endotoxins, that's a gram-negative bacteria, and it increases the trigger insulin resistance. So we're seeing that each one of these plays a role inside the system. I show you this because, sometimes people want to see some, like some test stuff or some information of what is what when it comes to the different types of bacteria. What does it actually do? Or what are these things that are actually going on inside the system? And what's the names of those bacteria? We have so much bacteria inside the system that we don't even know all the names of them. We're still scratching the surface on a lot of these. And we see that, even people that are overweight, they're finding out that they have certain type of bacteria in their gut and in their poop. Yeah, I did say that word. I should say BM. And that because of that, it also shows that if they'll be skinny or if they're overweight. And it really all comes from our gut and how everything is processed. So we're learning more and more and more. And it's just like a really fascinating journey to see that, wow, all of this affects us. Our food really does affect us. And if we're eating good food, I've had people come in where they're eating all the right stuff. They're doing all the right everything, doing everything that they're supposed to do, but yet they have a problem. It's like, how does that work? How can that be? It's because maybe up here they're thinking something else. Or maybe there's just something that their body is not actually taking in like it should. You know the saying? We need to chew, chew, chew because it's good for you. Okay? So let's say it together. We need to chew, chew, chew because it's good for you. Or me, right? Because if we don't chew our food, then that means that we're not going to be able to really digest it properly. So every area, starting in the mouth, because that's where digestion starts, if it doesn't start there and it skips the enzymes from there, as it goes down in this process of digesting your food, we start having issues because we don't have the right enzymes to break the food down. So it's trying to do even more work down here. And so we're not going to have the food broken down enough to be able to feed all of the cells the way they need to be fed. Or if we have sensitivities to certain foods, then we already have an issue going on, and things are not going to uh, digest as properly either, because it's going to send signals here and there, and then we're going to have other issues, whether it's skin issues, whether it's headaches, whether it's, all these other issues that come on. So when we look at the root cause, it's not the symptoms we're looking at. We're looking at the actual thing that's taking place. Now, someone can come in and they can say, oh, look at my big toe. It's big and red and it hurts. Well, what happened? I dropped a big cement block on it. So what's the symptom? It's red, it hurts. What was the root cause? What actually caused it? The weight of that cement brick, right? So let's put it in another perspective. Let's see, what's one thing that you can think of that if you do something, it'll cause you a bad effect? Do you know anything that might cause you a bad effect? Okay, I'll tell you one thing. If you hear someone complaining for 30 minutes at your job, that's going to affect you later on. Science tells us that. Just for 30 minutes, what it does is it's ruining your brain. It's corrupting your brain. It's making you feeling what they feel, and your body is actually taking it on, and you're feeling like that person is talking about what happened to them. Okay? And so later on that day, when you get home, you're going to say, honey, let me tell you what happened. So-and-so at work said blah, 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 blah. And they tell you all this negativity. And what it's actually doing to your brain is probably stimulating some stress because of that situation of what happened. But what happens in our brain is that we take on that information as if we actually lived it, we actually done it. Isn't that interesting? But the good news is we can take good, positive stuff and put that into our brain, try out that good stuff, prove God's word, test it, and see if it truly is real. See if it really is what he says. If he says that he's, when we claim promises, right? When we claim God's promises and we take in God's promises and we claim those promises, like if you're having an anxiety attack and your heart's palpitating and you start claiming where it says in 1 Peter 5, John, where it says, he cares for me. You care for me. You love me. Or you can go into Jeremiah where it says that he loves you with an everlasting love. And you start saying these things over and over. What happens is now your mind starts calming down, your heart starts calming down, and it starts getting back to where it should be. And what takes place? We start realizing that we're not anxious anymore. We're calm. Or you might want to claim a promise where peace, where it has peace. Peace I give you, right? Not as the world, but the peace that I give you is not like the world. It calms us down. Maybe even going out for a walk, it calms us down. These things calms us down because we're going to God. We're going to what he has created to help us, to calm us down. Breathing, right? Outside, air, sunshine, trees, all of these things calm us down. So our brain takes on certain things. So when you watch a movie, do you feel like suspense? Like, oh, and you're like, whoa. Have you ever done that? Like they're doing something, you're like, whoa, that almost hit me, or whatever. And you're starting to feel the same way that person that it's being talked about, or the person that's in that movie or whatever. Maybe none of you guys watch TV. I don't really watch it anymore, or those movies. So, I mean, when I did, it was just like, oh, and you're like really into this thing, right? And so your mind is taking that on as if you are the one that's going through this. So when we go to God's word, we should take on the same thing, like when we see different people like David and Saul and Paul and Peter and and the different ones that we talk about, Job and Abraham and Sarah and Ruth and all these different people that we see in God's word, and we're like, wow, oh man, Peter, why did you do that? You know? And sometimes we say the same thing, like, oh wow, why did I do that? And then you have to say, God, please help me. But at least you recognize it, and you're able to go to God and have him help you through that. So then that way you know that when something like that starts happening, you're like, you're tuning from that, and you're asking God to give you the strength to go in another direction, or to go forward through something, right? He wants us to go through it. And what is it called? It's a testimony. You get tested, you go through it, it's a testimony. God wants us to have testimonies. So that's why when I work with people, I like for them to have testimonies, because it's not me, it's what God has given us to be able to change our lives, to transform us to be healthy. And so that's what he wants, is for us to be healthy. So now, the inflammation, insulin resistant cycle. Here we see this cycle, and it's such a vicious cycle that it's hard to actually stop that cycle. So here in this cycle, we see that this loop that worsens over time is that when you have this high blood sugar, what it's doing is it's damaging the gut lining. It's also now, after damaging the gut lining, it goes into the next step where you have leaky gut problems, and it allows those endotoxins to get out into the bloodstream. Then after that happens, it goes through the next step of a chronic inflammation where it blocks the insulin receptors. And once that happens, now we see that the blood sugar rises even higher, and we go back to step one again, and we go through that same process. And it happens over and over and over again. So that's the inflammation, what happens for people with diabetes. And that cycle keeps going over and over, that your body is trying to, I mean, it's just going through the cycle because you haven't done anything different. What did Einstein say? If you keep doing the same thing, you're going to get a different result? No, you're going to get the exact same result because you keep doing the same thing over and over. If you keep hitting your toe with that brick, you're going to get the same result over and over. You got to stop hitting, you got to stop putting that brick and throwing it on your foot, right? So we have to stop what that cause is. And when we understand what the cause is, now we can shift into healing. We can shift into getting better because we're stopping that cycle. What we're thinking, what we're feeling, what we're doing, what we're getting, what we're thinking, we're switching it, we're changing it. So now we're off to something different, and we're getting different thoughts. We're getting different feelings. We're getting different things that we're doing. We're getting different results. Because the only way you can get a different result is if you change your direction, as you change your thought, as you change your thinking, because that's what we have to do to change that cycle. So research is very clear. It states that 3.8% or 3.8 times higher diabetic risk with gut dysbiosis. We have 0.5 to 1.5% as the A1C reduction with gut healing. We also see that 40% improvement in insulin sensitivity. And so we see that in the cell metabolism, the diabetes care, and the nature medicine. So this is the documentation from research that shows that, yes, there is a correlation with the gut. And as we start doing something different, by understanding what's taking place here and to correct this, we start getting better results because we're actually getting to the root cause. Now, my mother, now some people will think, well, you know, we had this thing long ago. I know when I started getting into medicine and all of that long ago, that you would say, well, people that have type 2 diabetes are overweight, and you start naming these things, right? But that's not true. Not everybody that's a type 2 diabetic is overweight, okay? And so when I started seeing that, I'm like, whoa, we can't always say that is exactly the person that you see, like, oh, that probably person right there probably has diabetic, whatever. But we can't say that because we don't know. We don't know until we actually talk to people and find out. Well, let me tell you, my mother was a diabetic for like 40 years. 40 years. She always says she was borderline diabetic. Well, is there really such a thing as borderline diabetic? Well, I guess you could call it prediabetes, right? But here's the thing with prediabetes. 1 out of 3 people are prediabetic. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people in here. For diabetics type 2, it's 1 out of 6. So if we knew that you're pre-diabetic and we did something, you wouldn't have to go through the process of being a diabetic. But if you don't know, because you don't test and you have no idea what your numbers are, you're going to keep doing whatever you do because you think you're okay. But once you get tested and you start seeing some things and you understand what those numbers are, then that means that you're going to probably start doing something, even though the doctor doesn't say you have it, because if you're pre-diabetic, they're probably not going to really do much for you until you actually become a diabetic. But what I'm telling you is, if you do something and you know that you're pre-diabetic, you don't have to go through the process of all that other stuff when you become a diabetic. But even if you do become a diabetic, we can still reverse it. That is possible. My mother, we went to UG Pines. Well, I was working at UG Pines, and then when I got home, I said, Mom, would you like to go to UG Pines? Yeah, I'd love to do that because I'd love to see where you worked. So I took her to UG Pines. Oh, my goodness. Everybody there. Oh, this is your mom? Oh, we love your mom. They'd be hugging her, kissing her all day long. I'm like, no. You guys can't be doing that to my mom. And that time there at UG Pines was her 70th birthday present. She loved it. She did not even want to leave the place because everybody was hugging and kissing her, because I knew a lot of people at UG Pines. I was just working there. And then I went there and I see my mom and I brought her there, and oh man, they were just like, oh, you're Julie's mom. Oh, this is great. Right? It was good for her. She needed that because my dad had a massive stroke. Not too long, right? And so she's like, honey, we should probably just get a house here and move here. And I'm like, no, Mom. We got to be realistic, We got to go back home. Got to take care of business with Dad. We got to make sure that we're doing everything. But yeah, she loved it. Of course, when you love it, people come and hug you all the time. Oh, Mrs. Hayek. Oh, and they're singing to her. They're so happy to see her, every day, all the time doing that. Do you like that? Of course. People like it when people like them. When people love them up, oh, you love it. Oh, that maybe you're one of those people like, I don't want to hug. Well, my mom loved hugs. I mean, she had how many kids? 17? Hello. You got to love hugs when you got kids, right? Do you like to hug your mom? Yeah, of course. Yeah, you know that when we hug each other, that does something for us? It helps us. It boosts our endorphins. It boosts energy to the point of healing. I don't know, let me ask a question. How many people do not like to be hugged? Anybody? Okay. If you're online and you're raising your hand, oh man, you're missing out. Everybody here did not raise their hand. So we've got a group of people here that are saying that, yeah, I would like to be hugged, right? Do you know that we had this saying where 13 hugs a day? How did that go? I don't know. So when I lived by myself, and I would go to church, I'm hugging everybody. Because if I can get my hugs in, so I have like 13 for every day for the week, I'm going to be doing good for the whole week. But really, it's better if you get it every day. So if you're married, hug your kids, hug your spouse, maybe give them a little kiss too, right? Cheek, mouth, wherever, and let them know that you love them. Love is one of the biggest keys to healing, because that means that you're there to support them, you're there to help them, and you love them. This is big stuff. Well, my mother came to UG Pines for, I think it was 3 weeks at that time, and she did very well. Yeah, she did very well. But when we got home, I had to go somewhere. And it wasn't a very good thing that happened. How many like ice cream? Everybody loves ice cream. But you got to decide what kind of ice cream you're going to eat. Well, we're talking about ice cream that the bank's going to serve because they're having a special whatever thing at the bank. And so my brother goes, hey, Mom, let's go to the bank. They're having a special little thing with ice cream. Let's go get some ice cream. I'm not there. So what do you think's happening? Okay. She goes get some ice cream. What do you think happens towards the end of that day? She ends up in the hospital because her blood sugar goes so high. What's going to happen now? She's in the hospital, and I'm calling home like, where's my mom, man? Nobody's answering the phone. And then finally my brother says, well, she's in the hospital. I said, what did you do? I took her to the bank for ice cream. I'm like, why? You know, she's diabetic. Well, she eats it every now and then. I'm like, well, no, that's not kind of what we're doing right now. It's a sad thing, right? But when I called the hospital, it seemed like everything was okay. Her numbers were where they needed to be. But here's the thing. If you're going to make a change, we got to make sure that we're intentional about what we're doing. I think my mother thought that as long as I'm with her, she's going to be all right, which she probably was correct on, because I'd make sure that I would help cook and make sure that we were doing what she needed to do. So what we have to do is when we decide to take these steps for change, we have to ask ourselves, can I make this change? It might be difficult. And so in your mind, you have to say, how am I going to handle those changes? How am I going to make those changes? So when I get around these friends over here, how am I going to make those changes? Because I know what we're going to do when I'm with them. And these friends over here, I believe that they'll be supportive, and I know that we'll probably be able to be okay. So when you're with these other friends that are going to say, hey, because you know what? My mother used to play cards, right, with her lady friends. And I remember I dropped her off, and then I come to pick her up. And they usually have food after they're done, right? So I'm coming in the door, and I'm hearing her friend across the table, oh, Dolores, your little baby child trying to tell you that you can't eat this cake and you can't eat this and you can't eat that. Oh, all you got to do is just eat it and get a shot in the side. My mother's like, no, I'm afraid of needles. She's afraid of needles. She's like, I do not want to take insulin shots. No. And so she's like, no, I'd rather do what my little one says. She says, I'll take the applesauce and not the cake. You see, she's starting to make those decisions here, saying, I can choose between what's good for me and what's going to help me and what's not going to harm me. So when we talk about foods, just because avocados are awesome and they're great omega-3s doesn't mean that everybody can eat them, all right? Instead of just talking about the bad stuff, let's talk about some of the good stuff, right? Not everybody's body is going to say that it's going to say it's okay for them. They might have some kind of sensitivity. They might have some kind of reaction because of it. So we have to understand that, yes, there are good foods and that we should all be able to eat them, but because of how we live in this world, because it's sinful and all these sprays and chemicals and everything else, some of these things affect different people different ways. And so even though it could be a good food, walnuts, whatever, pecans, whatever, almonds, whatever it might be, that might affect one person, but it doesn't affect the other. So when we know those kind of things, we want to support everybody so everybody feels good. They're whole and healthy. And that's the key point, that we have to understand that there are foods that are really good foods, but for some people it may not be all that good. So these are some of the key markers that we need to monitor. Fasting glucose, the HbA1c, fasting insulin, the HOMAIR, the C-reactive protein. because what they're doing is it's showing us what are the blood sugar control, the 3-month average glucose with the A1C, the insulin resistance, the index of that, the inflammation level. So when we look at those things, because of the tests that were done for these specific things, it helps us and guides us to know what's going on in people's bodies. So this is pretty important. So how do we heal your gut to reverse diabetes? Because that's what you're here for. You want to know, what can I do? I mean, you're telling me about science. You're telling me about these things. I don't really understand those tests, and maybe I'm not really interested in those. But I want to know, how can I actually heal my gut so I can reverse this diabetes? So it's a 5-step process that takes place, five-step protocol that works. Okay? Whoops. So the first step is we have to eliminate sugar and processed foods. You'll see in my books, this is like the number one thing. Processed foods, sugars. Now, in my one book back there that's about the Functional Lifestyle Reset book, it talks about, it has 75, there's 75 different names of sugar. And some of them you might not be able to pronounce because they're chemicals. So foods that spike blood sugar and damage the gut are all added sugars like white, brown, even honey. People had this kick for agave. Agave is not all that great. If you're going to sweeten something, it'd be better to do it with fruits, but some fruits might spike the sugar, blood sugar level as well. So if we're going to do fruits, we have to be careful with those ones that are such as dates, bananas, mangoes. And let me tell you, if you go get your, is it yearly physical and all of that, and they test your blood sugars and all that, and you're like 99, 98, they're not going to say anything. But you could be a pre-diabetic, especially at fasting. It should be somewhere between 87 to 95, approximately. Somewhere's in there. That would be your better numbers. But once it gets a little higher than 95 to 100, then I'd be like, what have you been eating? I had a lady that came into Country Life, perfect health. And she wanted, this was like sometime around COVID time. And she said, I want to go back to Jamaica, visit my family. So she went and got the COVID vaccination, okay? So she got the COVID vaccination so she could fly home to Jamaica. She went to Jamaica, and she was able to go home and spend some time, good quality time with family and friends. And she was eating so much mango because it was in season. And she's eating a ton of this, right? And then I don't know what else she was doing there. Maybe she stayed up late. I'm not for sure. I don't think it was a lot of stress. I think it was more fun than stress, okay? Because she's with family. She loves going home. So she comes back after a month. Oh, that's right. My appointment for my 1 year, to get her blood test and everything done. So she goes in, gets her blood test done, and the doctor calls her and says, hey, you've got cancer and you're a diabetic. She's like, what? What do you think she did? She came over to the office where I was, and she said, Dr. Julie, you got to help me out. I was fine, and I don't know what happened. I said, calm down. It's okay. Let me just see what's going on here. And I asked her, I said, well, we've got more variables because it's COVID time. I said, did you get the vaccination? She said, yeah. I said, did you go anywhere? She said, yeah, I went to Jamaica. And I said, what were you eating? Oh, you ate a lot of mangoes. Okay. And I said, okay, this is what I want you to do. So we went downstairs into the herbal room, and I said, you see this bottle up here? It has curcumin and berberine. Take that for 1 month. Call up your doctor and tell her you'll be back in 30 days to get retested. She took that for those 30 days. Used the whole bottle, right? And she got tested again. She has no cancer, no diabetes. Because, see, I think that with the COVID vaccination, it gave us a whole nother variable, right? Plus, she was eating some of the sweeter stuff more than usual. So that's going to spike some things. And we know that with cancer, in order for those cells to grow, if you have a lot of sugar in your diet, it helps them grow faster. Some people would say that cancer equals, or sugar equals cancer. If you get too much sugar in your body, that equals cancer. That's somewhat true. But it really depends on some other variables too, right? Because we have lots of variables. So one thing could be the main hook or the main point that makes that happen. So in my mind, I'm like, praise God. When she went back, she was good. Praise God that there's things that we can do that are natural that can turn things around. And my thing is, the faster you get on that protocol, the sooner you're going to get the results. And so I just wanted to make sure that 1 month was done, so then that way we were good. And then I told her, I said, when you go back, just don't eat that much, okay? I don't know how many she was eating, but when I go to those places too in the islands, I want to eat as many mangoes as I can. And a lot of times, you go there and they feed you so much food. Like when I was in Jamaica on a medical missionary trip, man, they fed me so much. And I'm like, when am I going to get the mangoes? So the lady where I was staying at, she would bring in the mangoes and I'd have to eat them at night. I thought I was going to lose 10 pounds. I actually gained 10 pounds. And I'm like, these guys, man, they bring out a plate of food for you, and it's like, whoo. And then this little guy that's with me, his plate is not as high as mine. I'm thinking, man, he's a man, right? Don't men usually eat more than women? But since I'm here and he's there for height, I'm thinking, oh, he's just a skinny little guy, And they're thinking in Jamaica, they're thinking, oh, this is probably your first time. And I'm like, no, actually, I took a lot of cruises. I go to Jamaica like a lot. And the guy that was with me was from starts with a C. No, that's the U.S. St. Lucia? That's what it was St. Lucia. Sorry, it was not a C. St. Lucia. He was from St. Lucia, and he was like the evangelist, right? And he he said, I've never been to Jamaica. But they thought for sure, yeah, because he's an island guy, he's probably been to Jamaica. And so I'm like, yeah, I've been here, I don't know how many times, like 20 times. But I'm excited to come here on a mission trip instead of just kind of vacation or whatever, right? So when we go places, we want to enjoy them. And we want to enjoy the food that they have. So we just have to make sure that we're balanced instead of overdoing anything. The next thing is, our next thing that we have to look at is refined grains, white bread, pasta, white rice. So get rid of the white stuff, right? We want to have whole grains. Now, some people will say, oh, if you do that, the things are going to go up or whatever, spike. But over a period of time, it will be okay because our body adjusts when we give it the real food. The next thing is processed foods with hidden sugars. We've got to look at what it says on the package. We've got to know what we're eating. My thing is, the more stuff that's in there, keep it on the shelf because more than likely it was created in a lab. The next thing is artificial sweeteners because they disrupt microbiome. Yeah, and a lot of those additives or artificial stuff, it's exactly that. What is artificial? Is it real? No. So if it's artificial, why are you eating it? Because it tastes good. On our tongue, I don't know, in 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, 7th grade, whatever it was, we looked at our tongue and we saw one area is our salty, sour, sugar, like sweet, right? So these guys that work in these labs, they put these chemicals together, and when they make the product, they make it to the point so every part of your tongue is like, wow. Little kids, you know what they love? They like green slime. They like the sour whatever that is. Have you ever had those? Good for you. Don't even try them. They're yucky. Ugh. They're full of artificial flavors. Would you like some artificial flavor? Me either. So we have to take a look at that. The other thing is high fructose corn syrup. Now, this is going to be a whole load of products because it's almost in everything, right? The last thing is fruit juice, even the natural fruit juices. They say that when they give kids too much juice, it actually ruins their teeth. Ruins their teeth. I don't know about you, but I had a little niece. Well, she's not little anymore. She's probably 40 something now, but she used to go to bed at night because when they would eat, even if it was like 6 o'clock and they'd go to bed at like 8, I don't know what it was. She was still sucking on her food, and she'd put it in the side of her hair, and she'd go to sleep with that little pouch in there. You know what happened to her teeth? They started rotting because, I don't know, I guess they never checked to make sure she brushed her teeth at night before bed. But anyway, I mean, there's just little things. And so when we see what happens, what it can do to destroy stuff too. So when you're giving your kids a lot of juice instead of maybe some water or an apple or whatever it might be, we have to also say, maybe we don't want to do too much of that. Because what kind of juice would you give your child? Probably apple juice, orange juice, right? And those are kind of sweet. All right, the second step. So the first step is what? Right. So the second step is add blood sugar balancing foods. So what are those kind of foods that's going to help stabilize and heal the gut? Well, first, non-starchy vegetables. 8+ servings daily. 8+ servings of vegetables that are not starchy. Okay, so the question here is, what is that? What kind of vegetables can you think of that are not starchy? What is it? Broccoli, okay, yeah. Cauliflower, yes. Onion, yeah. Asparagus, garlic, squash, cabbage, peas, spinach, kale. Yeah, so you guys get the picture. So these are the things that we want to really hone in on. So the more of that list that you can get for that, this is what you want to make sure that you're getting. You want to get about 8+ servings of that. Now, with people that are diabetics, I like to make sure that they're getting a lot of greens in. Well, actually, I like everybody to get those greens in. But what's happening with the greens are, what it does to your body is it alkalines it. So what does that mean when your body is alkaline? It means that disease can't live in an alkaline body. But we don't want to overdo stuff either. We don't want to go crazy and say, oh, I can only eat greens. No. You can eat lots of food. So I'm trying to show you that there's a lot of food out there that you can eat. So what you got to do is you got to start telling yourself, these are the things that I want to eat. These are the things I want to eat. These are the things that I need to eat. And you want to make sure that they have lots of different colors. Because the more colors you can get in your diet throughout that week is going to be good for you, because if you don't get these colors in your diet, you'll be deficient in some vitamins and minerals. So the more that we can get those colors and the more that we can eat these types of foods, the better off it's going to be. Now the next one is fermented foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, and all that. Now you're going to say, like I said last night, oh my goodness, why are you talking about fermented foods? Well, we sometimes should not eat fermented foods because sometimes that is really not good for us. But when we're looking at the gut, and we have to look at these different steps of what's going on, and to correct that microbiome, we might have to put some of these things inside of our system in order to help with those beneficial bacteria. The next thing is healthy fats, avocados, olive oils, nuts, and seeds, right? Those are healthy fats. Next thing is quality protein. Now on there is meats. Well, I would tell you not that. We talked about peas. That's a high protein. Because if you go into any of these health food stores and you're looking for a protein powder for you because you're vegan or whatever, pea protein is the big thing, right? It's better than soy protein. But soy protein's good too. So what we have to do is we have to look at our beans or legumes as our protein, even though we'll see here that we have other things too. So resistant starch, right? Cooked and cooled potatoes and rice. But these help. But then again, if you have an allergy or if you have a sensitivity to these foods, you're not going to want to take them. Really, white potato does not necessarily increase your blood sugar levels. It depends on what you put on that potato as well, but it can in some cases, just like rice in some cases can do that. But if we're eating whole brown rice, it may bring it up a bit, and then over a period of time, because your body is starting to heal, it will level out. Yeah, you're looking at me like, are you sure about that? Yeah, actually, a friend of mine, he does talks like this all over the world, and he was saying that white potato is okay for people that are diabetics. But we usually tell people not to eat that. Well, let me ask you a question. Is a white potato starchy? Yeah, and what do we say on the first one? Non-starchy vegetables. Is white potato a vegetable? Yeah, it is. So I'm telling you that you can probably eat them. Don't eat them as French fry, okay? I wouldn't necessarily eat them a lot, but every now and then you might be able to have a little bit. Yeah. Yes, that's the point. Cool. Yeah, so the cooking part of it and the cooling part of it is very key. Because when it cools, well, actually, when you cook something, it changes. Yeah. And when you reheat it, I'm not really for sure if you reheat it, if it would put it back in the same state as if you would eat it like that. Yeah. Potato salad. Yeah, I would say that I'm whole food plant based. So I would say no to eggs. But when it comes to eggs and you're looking at protein, you know that you see all of that in there, that it's high protein, but it's also high fat in some ways. Um, my question to you is, if you're eating eggs, how do you know it's a good egg? Where did you get it? Right? Well, then again, someone can say, well, Dr. Julie, how do I know if this spinach is good for me? Where did it come from? Right? But we know that there's more diseases and stuff like that can be carried over from animals more than with plant food. So we have to really weigh out. If you're transitioning from meat and dairy and cheese and all that other stuff and eggs, I would say, transition in your stepping to do so you're not overdoing stuff and then come to a point where you're going to disregard it altogether. How does that settle in your mind? Hmm. It's too much. Yeah, that's overload. And your doctor thinks that you need a lot of protein. Our body doesn't need a lot of protein. There's so much research out there, but I've seen people come on the internet and they're saying, "Oh yeah, you gotta have protein. Oh yeah, you gotta have meat. If you eat meat, you're gonna get your plant food from that meat because it's secondhand." What? What kind of? I don't know. To me, it's like nonsense talking. But they're so educated and they're just really coming across, and everybody's just listening to these people. We have to really know what we're reading and looking at when we're looking online. I mean, how credible are these people? And we know that with what's happening in the world today, that more and more diseases is happening, and we're seeing more and more animals are sick and stuff like that. I lived on a farm. I know that a lot of farmers do not want to waste their animal, and if this animal is getting sick, they're going to send it and sell it and get rid of it before it dies because they put how much money into that animal. So if you think of that, how do we know how well our meat is? Unless, of course, we're raising it ourselves. But then even at that, I know of a school that was trying to make extra money. And what they did was they were raising chickens and they were selling eggs. And they found out that there was E. coli and other stuff. And they're just like, oh, well, how could that be? Well, that's just part of the makeup of these things. I remember one year, I don't know, it was in the 90s, early 90s, where there was a big case of E. coli that was on broccoli or something. Well, they didn't say on broccoli. They said broccoli had E. coli. And I said, well, where was it grown? And what kind of food did they put on top of the broccoli when they were transporting it? It was probably meat. It was probably something that you would really get that from. Unless, of course, they were raising it in some manure. You know what I'm saying? There was a guy that had E. coli that was working on the farm because they were going to the neighbors to get the manure from their animal to put on the farm. And he ended up getting E. coli. Almost died. So we really have to say, Lord, what is it that's going to help me? We don't need all that protein. That's just so much. You want to get the best thing for your blood sugars to stay even is make sure that you're having a legume or a bean with every one of your meals. You need a half a cup of beans at every single meal because that's what helps stabilize that sugar. How do I know that? Because I was in perfect health. I was young. I was at UG Pines. And I decided I was going to do a fast one day every day a week. Every Tuesday was the day that me and my friend got together at the chapel and we prayed for our families. We prayed for everything that was going on and everything. And all we had was water that day. The next day coming off, all I ate for breakfast was fruit. And over a period of time, I started developing hypo, low blood sugar. Because when you eat fruits, that's like a lot of sugar. So it probably spiked up. 2 hours later, bad headache. Oh, couldn't handle it. Went up to the Lifestyle Center, asked them to check my glucose level. It was 29. Scary, right? 29. So we see the spike up and down. So then I realized half a cup of beans. So I would eat grain, beans, fruit, right? By doing that, everything came out level. Because they say that it should go like this, right? The curve should be like this when we eat. It should not be up and then down. But that's what we do in American Standard Diet. It goes up and then it goes down because we don't eat things that are substantial. Yes, that protein is important. What kind of protein are we getting? What kind of oils? What kind of things are we getting? So if we're getting it in the natural state, that would be the best, right? And of course, we have a lot of chemicals inside of us that has to do with a lot of proteins or different types of proteins. And so, yes, we do need protein, but we see that there's studies out there that have been there for so long that talks about how much protein you actually need. And people that are vegetarian, strict vegetarians, they get over 90 grams of protein from just eating their fruits, vegetables, their whole grains, their nuts, their seeds, their legumes, that they're okay. If we're vegetarian, vegetarian meaning that we eat those other things, we're actually getting about 120 or possibly more, depending on how much cheese or eggs or whatever that we're eating with that. But if you eat a lot of eggs, that's going to increase some of the other things too, which are the factors of like cholesterol and stuff. So we have to have that balance in all areas. And yeah. Right, and that's a better way. So Dr. Agatha, she used to say, if you get a baked potato, you put lemon juice on it with some salt, and it tastes like you have sour cream on it. Try it. You'll be amazed.
And on the eggs,
Mm-hmm.
I saw a study recently, well, it's been a couple of years now, that eggs have the same result as red meat. Now, that's the study that just proved.
That they're saying now, red meat and eggs are in the same category. So, yeah. All right, so apple cider vinegar before meals. Now, what would that do? You can actually do lemon before meals instead of apple cider vinegar because it will pretty much do the same thing inside the system. What you're trying to do is you're trying to get the acid in your stomach to be at a certain level, the hydrochloric acid, so then that way when the food goes in, it's going to be able to do a better job of breaking down the food.
You say pure lemon or lemon water?
It's not up there, I'm telling
No,
you.
I mean, you say.
Yeah, I'm saying if you can get lemons, if you can get good organic lemons, or if you can get some good lemons at the store,
Right. But
yeah.
I'm saying you eat the whole lemon, half the lemon, or leave
Oh,
it?
how much? I would say about a tablespoon,
Okay.
and you can put it in some water
Then,
and then drink it. Yeah. Hmm. The third step is strategic supplementation. So you want to target the gut and the insulin sensitivity by doing probiotics. We want to make sure that some people are going to need the berberine. You're going to need 1,500 milligrams daily. So you'd break that up into 3 times or at least 2 different times because I think most of them is like 500 milligrams for berberine. So 5, 10, 15. You're going to have to get 3 of those pills. Chromium picolinate between 200 to 400 mcgs. The ALA, 600 milligrams. Cinnamon extract, which would be the Ceylon, CEYLON. And then the glutamine for gut repair, 5 grams twice daily. So that'd be a total of 10. So all of these things for supplementation would be key things when it comes to helping with the gut health as well as the insulin sensitivity. All right, I just want to give you a little time so you can write down if you need to or take a snapshot because a lot of times this is what people are going to look at because they want to know exactly what to do, how to do it. So I'm giving you more than most would tell you, like those little extra things, right? When it comes to the probiotics, you actually want something that has 8 to 10 strands and it needs to be about 50 to 100 billion CPUs, right? All right, any questions on these things? Berberine is actually an herb and it's really good, but not all people that have type 2 diabetes will berberine work for. I had a person where they exercised a lot, they were thin, they had diabetes for a while, and they could never get off their medicine. I put them on berberine, and it didn't work for them because the more that I knew about them, the more we could help change up with some other things. Most people with type 2 diabetes have chromium picolinate deficiency. So that one is usually one of the main ones that people would definitely have to have. But then again, to know some of these things, sometimes it's better to get tested to kind of know where they're at, know a little bit more about their background, so then that way we can do some more things. Yes. Extract means that it's a liquid. So most people are probably not going to find that unless you search it somewhere. You might find it. I might have it on my script thing. So the cinnamon, if you are doing this, the cinnamon has to be CEYLON. That cinnamon, because the cinnamon that we buy at the stores, that's a different type, right? It's kind of like you have different type of oranges, right? Different types of cinnamon. So the cinnamon that has been proven to work is the Ceylon cinnamon. And if it's an extract, that means it's going to be much more concentrated than if you were to take the powder. But the powder is more concentrated than actually if you're using the stick to make your tea. So I mean, there's like different uh, what's the word? Potencies, right? So yeah, that's. I'm glad that you pointed out the extract. Yeah, it'd be 500 milligrams daily. So you get an idea of some of the supplementation that a lot of people would probably be on. The fourth step is optimizing meal timing. So what does that mean? When you eat, it matters. And also as much as what you eat. So not only what you actually eat, but when you eat. So the time makes a huge difference. God has a schedule, right? So we need to have a schedule because if we're regular at eating at a certain time, drinking and eating and working and all of these things, that's what's going to help us to be more regular too. So time restricted eating. This is more like talking about intermittent fasting here. So 12 to 16 hours of fasting window. So that means you have like an 8-hour window that you would be eating. Now, some people take this intermittent fasting thing to a point where I'm going to eat for those whole 8 hours. Like every 2 minutes, I'm going to put something in my mouth, or every hour on the hour, I'm going to put something in my mouth. And yeah, they might get some results. They might lose some weight. They might feel better and all of that. But you have to understand how the stomach works. What you're doing is it's like taking a weight and you're doing this every time you eat. Now you got to do this because it has to start to digest, right? Then you add some more in there, and then now you might as well add some more, right? And so you keep doing this, and if you keep doing that, what's going to happen if you do that for 8 hours in a day? Yeah, your arm is going to get really tired. Same thing with the stomach. It's a stomach muscle. It's doing its thing. And so we have to be careful. So when we do this, even if it's eating for 8 hours and then 16 hours you don't eat, that's a lot of wear and tear in the stomach. So if you eat 2 meals, 10 and 6, because you want to have a break in between, so then that way there's enough time in between that the 2 times that you eat will be sufficient for it to be able to take care of what it needs to take care of here. So then that way when you do go to sleep, you'll feel better. The next thing is eat dinner at least 3 hours before bedtime. Well, that's important, but if you eat at 10 in the morning and your last meal is at 6, or you finish at 6, 7, 8, 9, well, that's 3 hours. 10 would be 4, depending on what time you go to bed. Eat large meal at lunch when insulin sensitivity peaks. So usually we say we should eat a big breakfast and a smaller lunch or dinner or whatever you call it. All right? Should I grab one of these? Yeah. So when we're doing this, we want to make sure that when we're eating, that we give our stomach enough time to digest the food. Because if we don't, it's going to be hard for us to sleep at night. The next thing is never skip breakfast because it stabilizes that morning glucose. So I'm not telling you to skip.
Switch to the other one.
Does that work now?
Yes.
Okay. And then eat your largest meal at lunch, right? I talked about that. And walk at least 10 minutes after each meal. We call it a digestive walk. If you do that, walking after a meal, I'm not telling you to like, no, I'm telling about just a nice leisure walk. What it does is it helps with the digestion and that activity. So then that way you're helping your body to digest the food. The fifth step is stress and sleep management. Both directly affect your gut health and your blood sugar. How? Because 7 to 9 hours is quality sleep at night, daily stress reduction, meditating, reading God's word, claiming his promises, having good breathing in and out of fresh air. That's going to help you feel better. Cortisol management prevents blood sugar spikes. Regular movements builds insulin-sensitive muscles. And sunlight exposure regulates your circadian rhythm. So if you're taking a walk, do it outside because you can get the fresh air, you can get the sunshine, you can get the exercise in, and that's going to also help you so you can sleep better at night. Next thing you know, you're going to be drinking enough water because that's going to make you want to drink. And then you're going to help your muscles. You're going to help everything. This is just, these are just good things. One thing you don't want to do is get on your phone all the time because that can also, divert you into what you need to be focused on. So let's talk about some success stories. The first person was Robert. He's 54. He worked at a warehouse as a manager. His problem was he had his A1C was 9.2 and his fasting glucose was 220. He was taking 3 diabetic medications. He had neuropathy in his feet and he had chronic fatigue. So the approach that we used was we eliminated all sugar and grains from his diet. We added a little bit of, it says fermented vegetables, some sauerkraut. We started berberine and the probiotics. And then we did the 16-8, right? The intermittent fasting. And then for the results after 120 days, we saw that his A1C went down to 5.6. His fasting glucose was at 92. And he was off all of his medication. His neuropathy was resolved. He lost 42 pounds. And his energy was restored. Now, these are great results. It took him a little longer because, people have to take the steps that is going to fit them to help them recover over that period of time. We don't get into these situations just like that. It takes time for us to build into that, and then those things happen. So it might take a little bit to get to where you want to be, but the sooner you get started, the sooner you can have better results. We had Maria. She was 61. She was a retired nurse. Her problem was she was a pre-diabetic. Her A1C was a 6.1. And her she had insulin resistance, she had PCOS, she had weight gain around the midsection, she had brain fog, and she had sugar cravings. The approach we took was a low-carb Mediterranean diet. She had daily kefir and sauerkraut. She was taking chromium picolinate. She had the ALA and supplement and the meal timing optimization, meaning that time of eating, the intermittent fasting. In 90 days, 2 months, her A1C went down to 5.2. Fasting insulin was a 4.8. She lost 28 pounds. She had 0 cravings. She had mental clarity that returned. Her PCOS symptoms were resolved. So, when we take the right steps for each person, we have to understand all the things that are going on in order to know exactly what route to take in order to correct it, right? The next person was David. He was 48. He was a software engineer. Now, you kind of understand some of these different people, like the warehouse guy, even though he's the manager, I'm sure he's running around the warehouse a bunch, right? And then also sitting down at times too, because managers have to do some other stuff. Well, here David is. He's a software engineer. What kind of activity do you think David had? Not a lot. Okay? So David's 48. His problem was he was a type 2 diabetic. His A1C was at 8.4. He had high blood pressure, right? He had fatty liver disease. He had sleep apnea. And he was on metformin and insulin. 48. Not a good picture. The approach we took was a strict low-carb diet. We did gut healing protocols with the L-glutamine. We did berberine. We did a high dose of probiotics and daily walking. He needed that. And 150 days, we're talking more than 4 months. His A1C went down to a 5.4. He got off all of his insulin completely. Metformin, he was off of that. Fatty liver reversed. Sleep apnea was resolved, and he lost 54 pounds. I'm sharing these things with you because there is success stories. But we have to be willing to say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go in that direction. I'm going to make these changes because I want to be healthy. You might be grandparents and you said, I want to see my grandkids, Or you might say, I want to see my child get married one day, right? So whatever that why is for you to want to be healthy, that's going to be your strongest point right there. So the common thread is that if you heal the gut, you'll be able to balance your sugar levels. Question is, if you want to be on the path of reversal, how can I help you? How can we help you? Well, I do have some offers that you can do. We can do a complete diabetes reversal testing panel, which would be a number of different tests. Yes, it would be blood tests and some other tests. We can do a 120-day diabetic reversal program. This includes, personalized gut healing and glucose balancing nutrition plan, customized supplement protocol, weekly coaching. That'd be 16 coaching calls with me. It'd be blood sugar monitoring, guidance, and tracking, meal planning, recipes, shopping lists, progress testing every 60, your 60-day and 120. So then that way we kind of have an idea where you are. Or you can just do the kit, the supplement kit, and you can get some of these items that we had talked about. So the prices, the testing panel is $897. That's $200 price down. The supplement kit is $647. And if you want to do the 120-day, it's $4,297. So you can talk to me if you're interested in any of these plans. Maybe I can see how we can work something out. Because my thing is you need to do something if you are in a situation like this. Because we've got to be proactive in what we do. You can start taking steps, and you might find a little bit of help, and then things aren't necessarily totally solved because there might be one piece of the puzzle that's missing. So why start today? Well, every day of high blood sugar causes irreversible damage. There's damage that's being done. People that have high sugar levels, what happens? What happens to their body? It starts affecting their eyes. It starts affecting their feet. It starts affecting their hands. It starts affecting other organs in their body. So the sooner you do something to be able to get a complete program that's going to help you in all areas to resolve these things is what we need. So the timeline for improvements, usually blood sugar stabilizes within 1 to 2 weeks. Energy cravings within 2 to 3 weeks. Fasting glucose improves between 1 to 2 months, 30 to 60 days, 1 to 2 months. The A1C reduction between 2 to 3 months. And then medication reduction between 90 to 100 days. But you know what? I have to put those numbers there, even though I've seen things change faster than that. But it all depends on the person too. Some people, I made a mistake. I didn't do that, or I kind of overdid this. So we've got to stay on the plan, but sometimes, these things happen. And so as long as we catch it and we keep going, it's going to be okay. We've got to take step by step process. So the cost of waiting, this is what complications when diabetes is uncontrolled. Physical things, nerve damage, neuropathy, vision loss, kidney failure, amputation risk, heart disease, stroke, financial burden, lifetime medication costs. We're looking at $100,000 plus, insulin dependency, hospitalization expenses, loss of work productivity, reduced quality of life, and you die early. So we have to look at what's happening. We have to be realistic. If we want to live with the disease, we're not going to live as long. So we have to say, okay, can I do this? And how can I do this? How can I be on this pathway? Will it work for me? Well, we know that it has worked. I have a 98% success rate. I hate to say it's 98, and the reason why is because 2% didn't want to follow what they were supposed to do. So what can you do? You can only do your best. So how do we get started? You can see me in the back if you're interested. And a few takeaways. I got 6 of them here. Number 1 is your gut microbiome directly controls your blood sugar and insulin sensitivity. The second takeaway is 90% of type 2 diabetics have gut dysbiosis, and this is fixable. The third takeaway is inflammation from leaky gut creates insulin resistance. Number 4 is the 5-step protocol: eliminate, add, supplement, time, and manage. That's the 5-step. And then number 5 takeaway is most people see significant improvements within 10 to 120 days. I have to let you know that when I'm in other countries, I see an improvement in 10 days. And when they come in with a lot of insulin, with a lot of medication, it's going to take a little longer, but usually within a few days, we're already taking them down half of their intake of their medicine and insulin. It's just I don't know, because we're doing certain things. No, the 6th takeaway is that type 2 diabetes is reversible with the right approach, and that is true. So we have to look at those things. So if we have any questions, other things that you want to discuss, we do have a few minutes. Any questions about anything? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I guess it's about how much you eat, right?
Yeah.
Like 4 slices is kind
Yeah.
of too much, right?
Good question about bread.
And
How much?
and also popcorn. I just read something that being a whole grain, it's okay. Is it okay?
Yes and no. That's like with everything, right? Yes, to the point that whole grains is what's going to help the body build it and to make it strong and go long. However, we can always overdo stuff too. When we say, oh, this is good, we start taking more of it and we're just overdoing stuff. Whole grains is the way to go, but what you want to do is you want to ease into it so then that way your body's adjusting as you're doing those elimination, as you're doing these other things, and you're replacing those bad things for the good things. Because your body is trying, usually what happens is this: when people go on any program, it seems like it gets worse before it gets better. Just because of that elimination or that cleansing process that's taking place inside the system, the body is trying to get everything, and so it's hype in with the inflammation and it's trying to get it out. So when it does get out, then we start seeing those numbers really go down. But as we increase the good grains, the whole grains, yes, you can. I mean, I've been in the Philippines, and you know what they eat at every meal? Rice. And yeah, there's a bunch of people that are Filipino that have diabetes. But as we start showing them the things and how to do it, they get results. I mean, you can get fast results if we do certain things, boom, 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 or we can take it easy. So then that way it's a real step-by-step process where it's slower, but it's more doable because it works with your schedule. Whether you're working or whether you're retired or whatever your schedule is, it's more doable for people like that. If we do it in a fast process, I kind of get a little nervous because I'm wondering what's going to happen once we get to a certain point. And you say, whoa, I'm off all my medication. You know, I'm going to have a piece of pie. I'm going to have a piece of cake. No, that's not how it works. Even if it is whole grain, whatever it is, cake, pie, whatever, we still have to be very in tune with how it was made, what exactly is in it, and will that be helpful for my body? Maybe just a little bit, but you might want to eat something with that because of the sweetness or whatever, right? So we have to take things step by step. See how you're reacting. See how that is. You know, are you truly healing? And are you healed to the point where you can start some of these things back, but not on a large level? With whole grains, you're going to be doing way better than if you're not. Just because that's going to help fill you as well. But like I suggested here, we have to have at least 8 servings of our vegetables that are non-starchy. Yeah. You had a question.
Okay. A question on the special workshop.
Mm-hmm.
what is in the testing panel? That's for the 897. What do you test in the panel?
Yeah, so that panel is testing a number of things. We're testing to see what you're sensitive to, so that we put you on the right foods to eat. It's also testing to see um, uh, uh, your deficiencies in vitamins, your aging, and it's testing two things for your gut. It's testing the strands that you might be that you're lacking, and it's also testing to see how well your gut is actually working. Um, it has a whole list of different things that you may be sensitive to, whether it be foods or whether it be animals or outdoor stuff like trees or bushes or non food type items. It's also testing to see what kind of sugars or additives that are in foods, so that we have an idea like, oh, I can't eat those chips because it has thus and such in it. So that big panel alone is a huge thing. And then we want to do the CRP. We want to know where that is. We want to know where your inflammation markers are at. And yeah, so those are the big ones.
Okay, also the supplement kit for 647. What exactly is in the kit?
Yeah, so what in that kit is we do a detoxification, a cleanse, rebuild, reinoculate, kind of like the things that we talked about yesterday as well. And then, so that's like all the supplements. So you don't pay for any supplements. I make sure that it's, you get it right at your door.
Okay. And also the 120-day program for 4297. What's in the
Yeah,
program?
so that's a big one.
Huge.
So it's like all of those things, plus I'm going to be there to coach you every single week to make sure that, okay, how was this week? This is what we're going to do. Our starting point, once you get this stuff, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to start it. And then the next week, how did everything go? What do we need to tweak? What kind of things do you need? What kind of help, right? There might be some other things that you're like, well, I don't know where to find this or whatever it is. Or I had a problem sleeping. Okay, let's take a look at that. What kind of things happen? So it'll be like more of a coaching call, as well as an opportunity to see how you're adjusting, and if you need to get off your medicine. So what I like to do is I like to also work with the doctor, whoever puts you on the medicine. I'd like to make sure that they're the ones that are taking you off it, and I'll be helping them to help you to come off that. Sometimes it takes people a whole year, especially because it's more online that we're talking instead of in person. So that's why I want to make sure that when you want to do this, you tell your doctor that you're getting off your medication, and that you want to let them know as you go along what's happening and what's taking place. So then that way they're getting educated, they're understanding what's the process. So then that way they too can help people if they want to get off their medicine. Because to me, the more doctors that I can help by seeing what's happening to the people that have been on the medicine, to help them see the results and to be able to take them off, because they're going to say, oh my goodness, like your numbers are so low, you don't need this amount of that medicine. Probably within a few weeks you're not going to need X amount, and then it's going to continue to drop.
Okay, and can I ask you, what do you use to do the cell detox?
Yeah, I don't know all the stuff that's in there.
You don't know all
I
the
have a
stuff?
whole package thing that I get from a certain company,
Okay.
and it's a 3-month program. And so each part is cleansing. So the things that are going to be detox is your liver, the main thing is your liver, your colon, your kidneys. I mean, everything's going to be getting touched upon to cleanse the system, because all those major organs need to have that cleanse.
Okay, and would that be with herbs, like herbal?
Yes.
Herbal.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
herbal. It's an herbal cleanse.
Okay, are you familiar with carbon technology?
I think I've heard of it.
Okay, I know that there's a lot of functional medicine doctors that are using that now. They're going to the cell level with carbon technology to get the toxins out
Mm-hmm.
so that the cell can perform and do what it used to do.
Yes.
Yeah. Are you functional medicine?
Yes.
Okay, you are
Mhm.
into the functional medicine. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, that's all.
Yeah. Because
Thank
my
you.
thing is, you go to a lot of these natural doctors or functional medicine doctors, and they're like, I can't believe it when I talk to people how much they're paying for a lot of these things, and I'm thinking, whoa. But then maybe they're doing way more testing than needs to be done, or maybe because that helps them to be more thorough. So it just really depends too. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
great questions. All right, I think we're good. So I want to thank everybody. Does anybody know what's happening tomorrow night? We're starting later? We're starting at what time, Pastor? 6:30? What are you going to do if people come at 6 o'clock? It's time for meal? I was here. Weren't we here in time? There was nobody inside here at that time. Anyway, yeah, I'm fine with that, whatever, because I do see people during the day. So if anybody would like to get a one-on-one, see Connie in the back. She's the one who has my schedule, so she'll let you know if there's anything available. And if you already have one, that's good, because then that way we can talk more about whatever it is that might be going on with you, and maybe we'll be talking about it tomorrow. I don't know, is tomorrow the one about, I didn't bring a paper. I think tomorrow's subject is the mind. Oh, so tomorrow we're going to be talking about Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and dementia, and fog, brain fog, and stuff like that. So if you know anybody, or maybe you're thinking, yeah, I'm getting a little like forgetful, you might want to come tomorrow or watch us online. All right. If there's no more questions, let's close with a prayer. Pastor, did you want to pray?
Opportunity to know and to learn more about how our bodies function. You have created us, you have designed us, and we know that you have the right protocols and the right solutions for our problems. Help us to follow those. Help us to be willing to implement those in our life. Continue to bless Dr. Julia and her ministry and all of us as we try to make our lives a little bit better here, and we are looking forward to seeing you soon, Father. Be with us as we depart from this place. Keep us safe, and by God's grace, if it's your will, give us another opportunity to come here tomorrow night. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So what have we said about tomorrow? Are we going to be here at 6 o'clock? Okay. Okay, tomorrow. You promise you'll be here. Okay, good. Okay, so tomorrow 6 o'clock. We stay on the schedule.